Everybody's here. We have a quorum, and we've got Scott and Joe and Nancy and Josh
Lonnie.
and Lonnie. Hi, Lonnie.
Hi there.
Thanks for coming. So I think the first thing on the agenda is Joe regarding 40 Gate Lane, possible uses fire department training site.
Yeah, so the way it sits right now, it's very difficult to get anything in there, as I've talked with several people about, in terms of getting apparatus, and so we would be concerned about our ability to control our training. I know there was some talk about doing some road improvements on a one-time basis. With that, depending on what degree that gets done, that certainly opens up a lot more possibilities for us to be able to use it. And we certainly would very much like to do that. We would probably have to do similar mitigation that we did to the one on Wendell Depot Road in terms of cutting some brush back and, you know, clearing some defensible space, if you will, around the house. But we would definitely like to explore it a little further if the town's willing to go ahead and grade the road down and make it a little more passable, which of course, from our point of view, is a good thing no matter what, because just getting in there on an emergency basis is tough enough as it is. So to get a big fire truck right down there, you know, now is iffy. In the wintertime, basically impossible. So we would have, you know, we'd be happy to try and do it. Let's put it that way. Our target time for something like that would be springtime after mud season, I guess is what we might be looking at for when we would want to do something like that. I don't know what everybody else feels in terms of what the town might want to do and when for grading. So I don't know, Dan, what do you think about that? When you might want to do it or have it done?
Right, that's something we can discuss. I mean, if it's just a matter of a day's worth of grading with a bulldozer, that's one thing. If it means chainsaw, cutting trees and all that, that's a little bit more. Maybe the first thing to do is consult with the highway department.
Yeah.
See what they think. Is it just a matter of making it a little wider and flattening it out?
Well, I mean, yes, to a degree, yes. Some of that road is not going to be made wider without you carving into the banks that already exist. So that is clearly becomes a much larger project. There really is only, as I remember, there's really only one significant turnaround spot where you might be able to turn around a large vehicle, and that's when you come across the first group of where the houses sort of radiated off from that large, there's a large spot, and then a couple of, I know, one or two long driveways, and that's where where you can actually turn something around. I don't know how much wider you're going to be able to make it. It's pretty much a one-lane road right now.
Right.
So.
Now, is Gate Lane a private road?
It's a private road.
Yes, it is not a town road.
And by rights, the town isn't allowed to work on a private road, but in talking with Nancy, we thought that it's possible that the town could improve it on a one-time basis, on an emergency basis. Public safety reasons it needed to be improved.
I mean, it's essentially needed that for years, because no matter what, it's you know, we've had incidents down there, and luckily it's not required us to bring something significant down there. But anyway,
There are people that live down there.
yes, there are. Absolutely.
Now, if it's owned privately, how does that work? Do we have to give permission from them to do anything to the road?
We would certainly speak with them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not we need their permission, it's probably not a bad idea.
Is there an association that, like a membership or something, that plans if they did do private work to the road?
Don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
A lot of those properties are rentals, if I understand it correctly, right, Dan? Aren't several of them rented out?
That's what I hear, yeah.
So, and I'm not sure currently how many of them are actually occupied. And there's at least one house that's beyond the big rocks, basically. It's, you know, essentially it's beyond all that stuff. So I don't know if that's got anybody in it now or not.
Well, we do know, and Scott can verify this, that there does appear to be somebody living at 46 Gate Lane and using the driveway at 40 Gate Lane as a parking spot because there's no parking spot at 46. And we have seen a white SUV parked there pretty regularly. So there is somebody living at 46, which is pretty far down.
Okay. Okay, so that's basically my take on it. We're definitely interested, especially if those kind of improvements can be made. And we do something along the same lines of what we did with 120 Wendell Depot Road, is we, few weeks ahead of time, we would start doing various types of search and rescue training, and with the understanding that we'd be able to burn the house, we might, do some, extra, cutting holes in walls, doing that kind of thing, and then pick a time and go ahead with the live burn after securing the appropriate permits from DEP, of course, like we did last time.
Right. Well, so why don't we check with the road department, the highway, and see what they're thinking about it, if they have any thoughts. And also we will check with some of the neighbors, some of the residents on Gate Lane, and see if we can find out more about any association or their thoughts about improving the road. I don't think they would object.
No, the final piece of it, of course, is we have to, we're bound by the DEP permit process that whatever's left has to be removed, cleaned up and removed to an approved site. So
Right.
that means a dumpster and picking the stuff up and putting it in the dumpster. I'm not sure the logistics of that down in there. We'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Any further select board questions on that, Gillian?
Does that structure have a basement that we would have to?
I don't know. Does anybody know whether there's a basement there?
I would guess that there is a basement, but I'm not positive.
I mean, we can go down and take a look and we can verify pretty quickly if there is. That clearly makes it a bit more difficult to clean it up.
Right, that's what I was worried about.
It all falls right in there.
Well,
So,
it's a big cleanup process anyway, because it's not a small house.
right. Yeah. And even with 120 Wendell Depot Road, which was a small house, that was a fairly significant cleanup process.
Yeah.
Easy to do because it was right there on the roadside, and dump out,
Right.
drop the dumpster and get the loader and dump it in there and off you go. So yeah, we'll have to investigate further.
Gillian?
Sorry, I keep asking questions.
Okay.
Are you able to get grant funds to help with something like that?
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of.
I will say that the last live burn we did on Wendell Depot Road, it cost us some money, but it wasn't onerous or budget breaking by any means. So,
This is a little more involved, for sure.
yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
And the only reason I would, I stick with these things is because it's the type of training that's obviously very hard to get in any other capacity.
Right.
So,
So is Nancy the one who would follow up on this, or should one of us be talking to Highway or the residents?
Either way. Are you volunteering?
I'd be happy to talk to Highway. I don't know how we'd find out who the residents are. We have owners lists, but not.
Broadband committee might be useful.
Yeah.
yeah, they probably do know who's down there, but it's the property owner that has to
Supposed
approve
be
it.
sharing.
Sorry?
And I'm also wondering if, just to be on the safe side, we should check with, if not town council, then perhaps a friendly lawyer who might be able to tell us what we can and can't do on a private road.
Good idea.
I don't know what our liability issues would be if something were to happen.
Yeah, I can do that. And
Or
I can
even,
also see about contacting some of the people on Gate Lane.
or even if they disagreed with how the road was upgraded.
I'd find that hard to believe that they would, but hey, you never know.
We live in Wendell.
Sounds like we have some time anyway.
Yeah. Okay. While Lonnie and Joe are still here, we had an agenda item regarding emergency response and checking on households.
You guys just start a meeting. We get bumped out of our meeting.
So
Um,
what's, I'm not exactly sure what the question about that is.
That was the question I brought to the meeting, just because I was contacted during the last power outage that affected West Street primarily,
Okay,
We can't have our meeting. I
or,
don't know how it works.
it affected that. But,
so, okay,
and so that a question was brought to me afterwards, that there was a number of people without power for an extended period of time, and some of those being senior citizens, and they had some concerns about that. So I didn't have any answers in terms of when is emergency management called, or who checks on people if there's an extended outage, or if there's a period of time.
so typically the way we look at this is, initially we do essentially a damage assessment in conjunction with highway and police and say, okay, what's closed, what's not closed, what are the priorities, bump them up to National Grid, do that kind of thing. And we did all that. In terms of driving around house to house check, essentially another 6 hours beyond where we were with the power outages, we would have been doing that. We try to give it some time for restoration to occur. We can certainly, if people want us to go sooner than that out, then we can. And it has to be safe for us to be able to get around to do that enough in terms of what's down on the roads. So beyond the protracted, when it gets a more protracted situation, then we can go house to house and knock on doors and see if people are okay. Luckily enough for this particular situation, it wasn't in the wintertime, it wasn't, cold out, it wasn't any of those things that make it a little bit more of a pressing issue.
Is there a time, what is the hours? You said 6 hours beyond.
I was feeling, at least the way I was looking at it, another 6, if we were not going to get restored 90% thereabouts to when that actually got done in that storm, I was going to go essentially the next day and start going around checking on people.
So like 3 days.
Yeah, day 2.5, day 3, start doing that. In the wintertime, that would be bumped up to day 2, essentially. After 24 hours, we'd have to be out there.
Mhm.
Like the ice storm as an example, you'd have to kind of be able to get right out there and do that kind of thing and just go house to house and, see how people are doing, if they need anything.
And somebody had said to me too, that there might be generators that the town can loan out to residents if they lose power. Is that true? Or is that just sort of something that happens informally?
No, there are no generators, at least that the fire department has, that can be loaned out. You have to be, there's a serious liability issue when you give somebody something like that, that you entrust on them to not, poison themselves with carbon monoxide, putting it in the wrong place and hooking up correctly and not electrocuting themselves or anything else. So we can't really be in the business of doing that. We can request generation and, in protracted emergencies, we can get that kind of thing for town buildings and town functions, but on the individual home owners basis, unfortunately, generally not.
I understand that.
And since we have Scott here, Scott, you want to comment on house checks if in a crisis like that or electrical outage?
Yeah, that's just something that when we meet with the fire department and emergency management and make that determination of when we're going to do checks. I know a few years ago with one of the bad snowstorms in Leverett, we were doing checks after about 2 days, like Joe said, where we found a couple people that were completely stuck and had no power and were resulting in breaking down their furniture to start burning so they could have heat. So that's not what we want to get to. So yeah, we'll definitely be in touch with Joe and figure it out. As for the generator side, at the PD, there are 4 generators in the garage bay. Not sure if what their use is or what they're for. When I talked to Ed said that he had lent them out in the past. But I agree with Joe, that is a liability issue if we're giving town equipment out for personal use. So I would limit that as well.
Hey, Scott, Are those generated, have they been maintained at all? Do you know?
I don't know. I have not run them in the last 2 weeks, but they
Okay.
look like they're in pretty good shape, but they've been there a little while.
Okay.
Excuse me, I think Anna has something important.
I'm gonna-
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. The assessors had started our meeting on Gillian's account. And because we thought your meetings were started through Lori's, and when your meeting started, ours ended and we can't start it again.
Ours is
Looks like Doug
through
is not-
Lori's.
Doug needs to sign out and sign out of the Wendell account. He's on the Wendell account.
I can do that, but it confuses me. All I did was click the link in the email from Nancy, so I don't understand what will happen. If I leave
That's
and
what I
then,
did too.
yeah, what will,
No, it's just because Doug must have signed in to set up a meeting or something,
yeah, a long time ago. So is
And
there some,
never
I
never
have to log
logged out.
out somehow? All right. I have to
Go
figure out how
into
to log out.
Zoom, go into Zoom and it should automatically say you're logged in and then you sign out.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sorry, Anna.
Sorry to interrupt.
All the wonders of telecommunications.
Yeah, I was thinking we were going to have to reschedule for another night. So hopefully this will work. Thank you.
Good luck.
Anna, if you're still there, you
Yeah.
might, if you can get the host key, you could start that meeting on the phone. That should be a totally safe. I don't know if Gillian's logged in too, and if that's an issue. I didn't think it would be.
I will, I can try to send that to her.
Yeah, if you can get the host key.
What do I do to start it on the phone?
You just call the phone number and they'll ask you for the host key and to start the meeting, and you just put it in, and then you can switch over to online.
Okay.
Okay, can we get back to our agenda here?
You'll send me, Gillian, you'll send me the host key?
I will try, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We left off, I think, with Scott talking, basically saying that Joe and Scott will figure this out when it happens, house to house. Is that a good answer, Gillian?
You're muted.
Sorry, I think, I mean, it sounds like it's about a 2-day window, especially, or a little longer if it's not cold.
Right.
It depends on the situation, but yes, essentially, that's about the time frame that we look at.
And I guess, maybe further, maybe I can think about it a little bit more, but maybe if there's concerns about senior citizens, if they notify people that they would like to be checked on if power is out, that
Yeah.
maybe that's a different step to take.
We'll absolutely go check on whoever at any time, even
Right.
if it took 20 minutes into the incident. If they want someone to show up at the door, we'll do what we can to get there.
Right.
Uh,
But I think it's a plan for beforehand, because they were without phone, without
Right.
electricity,
So-
they were.
People would have to make that known to us essentially ahead of time, and then we can put
Yep.
them, we can have a running list of folks that want to be more immediate on that respect. So.
And maybe that's something that the Nancy Spittle, who does the work with the Council on Aging in town, maybe I could talk to her.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
We'd be happy to do that.
Thanks. Excuse me while I try to figure out Zoom.
And Lonnie, did you have any further thoughts on that?
No, I thought it was going to be something different because I was going to say, let's wait till after the election, but nope, this is good.
Okay.
I'm very good.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Chris.
The assessors, if we could just have a minute.
We were just on with Anna, so you should talk to
Okay.
her.
Okay, we got it straightened out?
Yeah.
Hope so.
All right. I think that takes care of our second agenda item, which is emergency response and household visits.
Dan, the final thing I'd have to say, I mean, if anybody has any questions that they'd like to direct offline or private or in any manner at any time, I'm sure myself or Scott or Lonnie, we're happy to try to accommodate or, answer or whatever it may be. So, if people want to, email or talk to us directly about a certain issue, that's fine. So,
Okey doke, good. Thank you.
Well, maybe.
Thanks to Joe, Lonnie, and Scott for that. I guess the next item is new police and fire radio pricing. So it's actually good we're here. Do we have any further info on that, Scott?
No, just the paperwork that I originally had sent with the pricing for those are the radios that the police would be looking for. Not sure exactly what radios Joe would be looking for, but the pricing, it has come down a little bit since the initial paperwork came out for these radios, and the state is still talking about possibly covering some costs of the installation as well as some costs of the programming, but I believe that's still up in the air.
so I submitted a spreadsheet that I'm sure, I think Doug already got. Do you get that, Doug? You got it? Okay, and Nancy got it. That details what we have in mind for what our needs may be. The reimbursement process is going to happen. That's what they've been telling us, that they are going to do that. Where that comes into be a little dodgy is essentially for station or base station installations. That's going to, that might cost, depending on how you do it, a bit more than what they're going to ask to be able to provide for us. And I'm going to be talking to a radio guy sometime in early November for some more concrete pricing from a private installer and see what his quote might be to do the trucks and so on. Hopefully it comes within that reimbursement amount so that there's no actual outlay. Right now, as you saw, I estimated what I based my estimated on more of like a high side, what it might be, and that's where my numbers are. I have reflected that. Essentially and I don't know if Doug has it up or if the select board saw it. There's a bunch.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Looking at it.
There's a bunch of things on there. The first group of items are extras that we have to pay for out of pocket, essentially. And that's the mics and the batteries and what I call DC chargers, repeater software, et cetera. All that stuff we have to pay for, we have to buy.
Okay.
That's that number. The radios themselves, I'm only looking from the fire department point of view to upgrade from the base radio, which there's no charge to us, to the APX 6000s. I'm looking to do a total of 3 radios, and that charge is reflected there. And then there's the installation. So that's the numbers at the bottom in bold show what that means. So there you go. That's what you got. Currently, we have not appropriated anything to offset this cost. So that's what it comes down to. How are we gonna do that? A couple things to understand about this process is the radios themselves are going to have to be ordered and dealt with prior to the change of our fiscal year. The pricing on the radios and the accessories is good for 3 years on the state contract, on this particular version of the state contract they decided to do. So all those other things, with the exception of the software additions, can perhaps be purchased at a different time. Although I would recommend we try to purchase them when we purchase the radios, only because of the functionality of the units themselves. The software add-ons are essentially about half the price they would be if we went to try to do that later. So that's why we're asking to do that now. And this is a little bit of a moving target. I'm on the group that sits with the state folks on a weekly basis. And we had yet another meeting today, another 2-hour meeting talking about radios. So you're all welcome to talk about radios for hours and hours. I've done plenty of it, but I will say that there are some other we've been looking at some other things essentially that we'll see where it comes down. There may be one or two other costs that have to be added into this. There may be something that gets subtracted. It depends on where they land with what they're trying to do. I don't know that it's going to be that significant. However, I think the target numbers at the bottom, at least for the fire department, I think for Scott's numbers too, are pretty valid and probably will carry us a good way through. As always with my, the way my budget is set right now, if I had to bear that entire cost out of my budget currently, I mean, right now that's doable. We may have to try to have some sort of funding makeup in the spring when we can put everybody together in the same space and vote it in. So that's how it sits for me.
So I guess what people are probably wondering is where the money would come from. So I'm glad that Nancy's here. Nancy, you're still here, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I have this, of course, sort of carry this in my head, carry this around. We might have a little bit we'll have to throw into the police budget or not. We're not sure exactly for these. And we have something we need for the fire department budget. And we have we may or may not have enough in town properties for the tree survey, plus any other town properties issues there are. But I think there aren't a lot right now that we have to do. So if I'm right, then there is enough in the FinCom reserve to cover these as transfers to those expense lines in the spring if need be, which we can do. If there's an overrun on an existing line, those funds can be transferred. At least that's what we've done in the past. Is that true, Nancy?
I think the overrun here is around $13,000. We have 15 in the reserve fund. Mm-hmm. My suggestion to Joe when we were talking about this is clearly their budget can't support it all the way to the end of the fiscal year, but if they could pay for it now, at least the fire department part of it out of their budget, then come May 15th, we can start transferring from other budgets that may have enough money or the reserve fund. The bigger
Right.
problem is the police budget does not have the money to support this now. So this 4,500 will probably have to come out of the reserve fund sooner rather than later, because we can't have a town meeting obviously now, and we can't do departmental transfers now. So if we were to buy this in November or December, the only line item that has any money, I mean, we may be able to take some from the police now, but it's not going to wait until May to replace it. So I don't know if the reserve fund could cover that more immediately for the police.
I guess one question is, how long will it take to get reimbursed from the state?
That's an excellent question.
Because that would be it. I mean, I'm sort of assuming that since they've sort of set this up specifically for this, that it might not take a long time because they must already have the money, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, sometimes those things happen quick.
Right, and I don't have an answer to that question. It hasn't really, they have not given us that timeline. The question has been asked.
Okay.
The grant itself is essentially due to be put out, essentially be available as early as tomorrow, maybe as early as next week. So the ability to order the radios will be there in short order. In terms of when we actually go forward with our piece of it is a little bit more complex in terms of how that's going to work. There's a website that has to be brought online via the COG. That's actually our ordering portal for this. That still is not actually in place. It still remains to be worked fully out as to how all these particular assets are going to get programmed. And then the secondary piece to all that is having the radios is one thing, but being able to actually use them and have the dispatch center understand that you're using them and now that's functional, is that all has to be brought together. The system that these will all connect to is running today. I mean, I could have one of these radios right now and go out and use it and it would work just fine. So we're essentially basically ready to go. a question has been asked amongst the various agencies is, do you have, if you were able to order radios now, can you actually pay for what you order? And that is all these extras that we talk about. And so essentially that's the question that is being asked of police departments and fire departments. We have a migration plan already in place amongst the committee that's worked on this, and the financial readiness piece of it is sort of a new twist in that migration plan, which has not fully been factored out.
So the other question would be, if you could, we could probably do an outdoor special town meeting in late March or early April. So, and then we could transfer money from stabilization, which we have plenty of to be able to do this. And so if you could carry the budgets that long, all of these things could be resolved at that point pretty easily. We don't want to have an indoor special town meeting, but we could do an outdoor one at that point if it was necessary. And then the other question I have, which would be worth pursuing with the state, would be that once winter comes and Massachusetts, since they're experiencing much more activity with the virus, will they offer towns the option of some kind of emergency transfers from stabilization via the select board under certain circumstances? I mean, there was talk of that in the last winter. Maybe they will do that this time.
Yeah, and that'd be great if they could do it that way.
Yeah, it's a thing it's definitely been on the table, but I don't know where they got to with it. We're not the only people in this situation, so.
Well, I'll write a permit for a barn fire if you want to have a nice outdoor meeting.
Could be a way to do it. I mean, really.
Might get a lot of people showing up. You never know.
Yeah, you know, it wouldn't take long. All we need to do is do a little transfer from stabilization, you know, a couple of small transfers. It would take 15 minutes. I mean, you know, that's a possibility. So I'm not too worried about it. I mean, I think that if you can carry these things with your existing budgets, we can find a way to make it work. It's not big bucks. And the money's there. Just a question of how to get it to where it needs to be.
And Doug, if the police department needs money faster, we can use the reserve fund for that temporarily.
Right. It's my understanding. Yeah, that it's available for that kind of thing. We have never actually had to do that, to tell you the truth. So in my tenure, we've never had to go dip into that other than at the very end of the year to make up for a few, you know, budgets that went over. So I don't know. I mean, Carolyn might have some feedback on that, but as far as I know, it's can be used pretty much wherever there's an overrun.
Right. Okay. Good. Further thoughts or questions about the radios and budgets? Joe, you had something?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okie doke.
Okay.
Should we leap into the reverse 911, Nancy, at this point, since we have police and fire here?
Sure. So we talked about reverse 911. The system they're using in New Salem, we got a quote that was very high. So Scott had forwarded me information, I think, from Margie McGinnis about the system that they use in Leverett called Code Red. And I did talk to him, and they said that their minimum, which is what Wendell would qualify for, is $1,250 a year for the reverse 911 system. And what they do is they have access to all the landlines through Verizon, and that's what gets programmed initially. And then we would have to get the word out if people wanted to add cell phones or get text messages. You know, I don't know if this is something clearly not budgeted for this year, something to keep on the back burner, or if the FinCom has any opinion about whether it's...
Sorry, Nancy.
What happened to what, Lori?
I was going to say, what happens with the voice over IP when a lot of the town isn't going to be using Verizon anymore? I assume Leverett is like that as well.
Yeah, I know that New Salem, the number of people that we reach I think has dropped since we initially installed it. And I think the big thing is when you put it in place, people that have gone to voice over IP may have the same phone numbers. I know that when we switched, we kept our phone number, but it would be, I mean, we can easily add numbers to this, but people have to tell us they want them added. It won't happen automatically or right away.
It was something that I was wondering about, that with broadband, we have many people's email addresses. And I was wondering if the broadband committee would be willing to send out an email saying, you know, at some point when we're ready to, if we do this, to contact people and say, if you'd like to sign up for this service, make sure we have your phone number, your current phone number.
And it could also go into the quarterly newsletter, because that reaches every household, I guess, if I understand it correctly. So that would be another way to capture those numbers. I will say that, you know, we have used it in New Salem from time to time. And it's, you know, it's, I'd say it's reasonably effective, but it's only effective as, you know, like anything, as good as the information that's in there. We've most recently used it during this last storm. I mean, I like the idea of having it. I think we should eventually get it. It is something that, you know, for $1,250, it's not a lot of money. If we are talking about the process of doing something with the radios, then maybe there's another budget that this could be paid for out of, and do the same process that Doug described for reimbursing a budget for the radios to get this done. If we feel we need to do it sooner than later, that's, I think, probably would be, you know, worth considering.
Another concern with the voice over internet phones, though, is because they'll go down when the electricity goes out, people won't get those calls, so it will be less effective for those people.
That's absolutely correct. And even the Verizon landlines, at this point, they have battery backups. They last about 4 hours, and often your landline goes out anyway. So really you want to try to capture as many cell phones, text numbers, and if people get their email on their cell phones, at least they might get it that way.
But the cell phones, you know, for this end of town, the cell phones are using Wi-Fi.
Right. So, I know.
I discovered that I can run my Wi-Fi with the broadband if I run a generator. So I mean, other people have been talking about battery backup packs, you know, to last, you know, short periods of time. So it's a bigger question. So is the FinCom question like the $1,200? Is that the total of it, or is there more to it?
Well, it'll be $1,250, and we don't have to do it now. We can put it into next year's budget, or if you think it's vitally important, we can look at it sooner.
Unlike the radios, it's not a thing where there's a cost savings by doing it sooner. I mean, that's the thing with the radios. It's all about how if we do it now, we could save a bunch of money. So that's why.
Right.
It's not that. It's just whether or not the safety people think it's really necessary now.
I'm gonna, oh, you can tell me if this won't work, but there isn't any chance that we can say we need it as a COVID expense, or that it might meet a COVID expense. Notify
It might.
people.
It might.
I know, I was gonna ask Joe or Nancy, did you use it during the beginning of the pandemic? That's when I first thought, wow, we could really use this to announce, you know, okay, all town buildings are closed now, and, you know, things like that. I don't know if you guys used it for that.
That's true.
Yeah, I believe we did in New Salem. We did something along those lines with it initially. So yes, again, if the information is valid in there, then it'll reach those individuals, and sure. We also did, I believe in New Salem, we did a town-wide mailer, a direct mail COVID type thing. So, you know, you want to make sure you get everybody. Nancy, sorry, go ahead.
Right, we could also notify people, remind there's a town meeting coming up.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different philosophy on the use of these things. You can do whatever you want with this kind of a system, and I'm willing to do whatever people direct me to do. But to me, I feel it's better used in an emergency situation or a relatively emergency situation, so that it's not looked upon.
You muted, Joe.
Yep. Oh no, there's that number again. I'm not, you know, it's just another message from the town. So when that phone rings and you're getting that call, it's clearly something that's very important to communicate. We have used it once or twice in New Salem for, I forget what it was, but something that was a non-emergent situation. However, I mean, the people that run these systems tell you should do all that stuff with it, and you know, you do whatever you want with it. So.
I'm wondering what Lonnie, Lonnie, you did our emergency plan. What's your thoughts about this? Yep, you got it.
You're muted.
You're muted, Lonnie.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah.
No, I thought this was going to be something totally different. Because again, I was going to just reiterate after the election, but just like a Wendell Cares, I know everybody's on the listserv. You could just do it that way, because word gets out from the rats. Everybody has to use a rats, and 99% of the people are on the listserv. You have the senior center; they let their people know. No, Jillian?
I know lots of people who are not on the listserv.
Okay.
Like I knew people who didn't know how to vote this spring, didn't know that there was a town meeting, because like the Millers Falls people
Yeah.
don't get the mailings, and some people are not on the listserv.
Oh, well, Plan B.
So, I mean, I've always thought this is a good idea as yet another backup, but there is a cost to it. Nancy, what's the cost for the other one, the Blackboard Connect? What do they quote you?
I thought that because we were only paying $1,150 or $1,170, it was like over $4,000.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Is there any initial setup fee for Code Red? Startup fee?
No, they didn't indicate there would be.
Okay.
Scott, did you have any thoughts about this? It's sounding to me like this is not an emergency, like we need to necessarily do this right away. Maybe we could think about it for next year's budget, but what's your thought?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no real need currently. We use it. We just recently got it at the start of this budget year. Excuse me. And it's worked. It worked really well for our Joshua Hill fire. The fire department kept all the residents informed through it. So that's worked. The town does use it for other notifications. We've done it. We've also notified for when we had roads shut down, things along those lines. But we also get a lot out through our Facebook pages, the fire department and the police department. So if people don't sign up for this and they follow us on Facebook, they'll get a lot of that notifications there as well. But it is good. But I think it can wait till the next budget if we want to go that route.
Okay, thanks.
I would say that it's, as somewhat to Lonnie's point. I mean, yes, there aren't enough people on that listserv to use it functionally that way for everybody. But during the time that we are now, with everybody wearing masks, and you don't get into the kind of conversations like in a country store or at the Rats that you used to, and so I could imagine that in certain kinds of situations that it would be good to use that for town meeting announcements and things like of that nature, but maybe not always. But maybe if we're going to do this year or next or whatever, that we could figure out some way to get feedback from people about what they'd like to see it used for in those terms, and I would particularly like to see it used for town meeting announcements. It's not like there's all that many of them. But it's one of those things that people say, oh, you had that, like Jillian, like you said, you had that. I didn't know, kind of thing, because it's just hard to get that word out. So I'm glad that we're considering it, and it's not a big budget item. Couldn't you use the select board funds for it? Even, I mean, that would seem to.
Yeah.
The select board budget is pretty vague, right? You're allowed to use that. You can use that for a lot of different things, right? I forget what the amount is in it, but there's decent money in there. I don't think it gets used very often.
Well,
Like,
the select board might have to repair Gate Lane.
oh, yes, yeah, you might, yeah, right, you may have to, there's some other things, without being able to do a special, it's like, yeah.
Mm.
It could be, it's good to have it there, that's true. I'm looking to see what that budget is. Do you know, Dan?
Not
Where
off
it's
the top
at?
of my head, no.
I have the budget here. Nancy was good to send me the last warrant, so if I find that, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head here, for what it's worth, I just think it doesn't sound like this is absolutely vitally necessary. I feel like we're putting a lot of stress on this year's budget, pulling things from this department and that department. I don't think we really have it right now, and until we figure out what we do have, I would really prefer to put it off.
Good. That sounds good to me.
I don't mind waiting till next year's budget.
That's fine.
And maybe we can do some work ahead of time to get people to, figure out a system to get people to share their contact information that they'd like to have on something like that. So we can
Right.
start off with a fuller list.
Okay, good. Item for next year.
Can I just ask a question about that, just for personal information or to pass on to people too? So if you wanted to have, like, say your landline, your whatever, the VoIP and whatever, and your cell phones, could you put other, could you put multiple phone numbers into it? So there's no limit, so each person could, and you could, okay, great. That's
You
really
can
good.
sign up for
Okay.
whatever you want, Doug.
Okay, that's good.
Text, email, phone numbers. Yeah,
Mhm.
you can sign up for all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can tailor the system
that's
so
good.
that you could send out only a text or only an email or only phone calls or any combination thereof, so.
Cool.
I'm on it for the town of Irving and Shutesbury, and the schools have them. And
Oh.
Irving uses theirs a lot. I would suggest we don't use it as much as they do. When there's a
Well,
fundraiser,
that's helpful. The personal
that's-
experience.
That's what I was talking about overuse. So there's
Yep.
a medium that would be great.
I get
Yeah.
a cell phone call, a home call, and an email. I need to adjust that.
Okay. Helpful.
Okay, I think we're good on the reverse 911. I'm not sure there's any other fire department related things on the agenda. Joe?
No, it looks good to me unless you have any other questions for me. If not, then I will go eat some dinner.
The dry hydrants are on there. Under old business, do we need to do anything with that?
Right now,
No, I
no,
think-
that's kind of been sitting on me to move that ball a little more forward. Due to a number of circumstances in the past few weeks, I haven't been able to get to that. I'm hoping to get to that a little bit more earnestly this coming week. So,
Okay, thanks for coming, Joe.
all right, nice to see you all. Bye,
Good to see
everybody.
you. Now, we do have one more police-related item on here. I'm not sure Scott would necessarily be interested in it, but it's payments levered for policing, allocation of funds from chief salary versus general expenses. It's an accounting question, I think. Nancy,
Yeah, yes, it is. More of an accounting question.
is it something
and
that we need to
one-
decide?
I don't think we can decide. It's going to be something that we need to discuss with our accountant, but just so
Exactly.
you understand the background, we have, at the beginning of the fiscal year, we had $44,000 in the police budget. 15,000 of that was a salary line, the rest was expenses. So the way the MOU has been fashioned, it was to take 1/12 of that every month. But when I went to pay it, I'm thinking, well, I should probably take part of it out of the salary line and part of it out of expenses.
Right.
And talking with Carolyn, she said, no, we got to run that by Brian because,
All right.
because it's, is it salary? Do we have to pay, Social Security or whatever it is that we pay out of that? It's become, of course, complicated, like everything else. So she said she would discuss it with him or Deb. I don't even know who is our accountant at the moment.
Right.
So in the
Right.
meantime, I've taken the entire amount out of the expense portion of the budget. and we may have to adjust later.
So that would just be a transfer or whatever.
Right, but it's going to involve the blessings of Brian, and
Right,
if we don't get them, I'm not sure where it's going to go.
right.
So that would be, that might be another bonfire special town meeting, huh?
Yeah,
Item. So now we got the 3 or 4 little items of moving a bunch of money quick. That might happen, but that, I'm looking at it. Yeah, the chief is 10,000, and there's left now. There's still 10,000 left, and there's 28,700 left in expenses and 5,000 in encumbered FY20. I'm not quite sure if I understand what that was, but yeah. So the total left now is 43,889.
but that was from 2 weeks ago, so that didn't include this week's payment, which would have been the $3,700 or whatever it was.
Okay.
Right, and Ed must have got a half of 2 weeks' pay too on top of that, out of that, I would assume, because
I asked Carolyn, she said that was the end of his pay.
Oh, okay.
That
He just went to the first then pay.
Yeah.
So okay, it's up to him.
Excuse me.
Lonnie, you had your hand up?
Yeah, speaking of barn fires, if you don't need me, I will go.
Okay, thanks for coming, Lonnie.
All right, have a good evening, folks.
Okay, Lonnie,
Fire.
nice to see you.
And Scott, I think you can rest assured that we'll figure out this accounting problem.
Yeah, it's one way or another.
I understand with Brian because he still hasn't even set me up an account yet for it. So
Okay, all right.
have a good night, all.
We're
Thank
good for
you,
it.
Scott. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, so there were a couple other things on the agenda that involve me, sort of, right?
Um,
If I can find that back again.
Hourly.
Yeah,
hourly pay rates,
pay rates, yeah.
Yeah.
rats and snow removal.
So, yeah, I think Carolyn sent out an email saying that, and of course I'm blanking on his name, Weatherby,
Oh, Tom Weatherby, yeah.
Tom Weatherby.
who does our snow
Yeah.
removal right now,
Yeah, she
is
might-
interested in being a backup at the rats, but we would have to, or Carolyn would prefer that we pay him hourly rates rather than, he can't be a contractor and an employee. And he was being paid as a contractor for the snow removal. But my point was, in order to get somebody to do snow removal, we had to pay what amounted to a fairly substantial hourly rate because it's so uneven. So that I don't think he would be interested in doing snow removal for the $16 that he would be getting working at the rats.
I thought of another way to do this. Why don't, and it said that would be much simpler. And that would be that we could pay Sylvia to be the snow removal person because she doesn't work for the town. And if that was okay with them, that would probably take care of it if they were interested in doing it that way. And then he could get the contract amount for the snow removal and still be an employee for the rats.
Well, my other
Why not?
suggestion was we just pay him a minimum of
Subcontract.
$5 an hour, $5 for snow removal, 5 hours every time he does snow removal, which would come out to
Or-
about $75.
Yeah, that was the other way. I thought of that too. So yes, it could be either one of those, whichever would work. That's right. That's another way you could do it.
Yeah, I like Nancy's idea.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Cleaner.
All right, I can set that up with Carolyn then, and we'll work that out with Tom if he's amenable.
Thank you.
Good.
He's not gonna be an hourly.
Okay, so the next thing that the FinCom might want to be in on, tomorrow, Dan, I'm gonna ask you to sign the round 2 application for COVID cares. This will be the death of me, I am pretty certain.
Oh,
So in addition to, we have some minor things that the town has. We have our Zoom accounts and maybe some PPE from the Board of Health. But the school had asked for some assistance with something called iWaves, which goes into the ductwork and kills pathogens. They also said the cafeteria required the replacement of some air handlers, or they can't open the cafeteria in the kitchen when and if the kids return. So I finally got sort of a half of an estimate on the first project, and we can go with that. I spoke with Bruce Turner today on the second project. It's going to be much more expensive. He said there's absolutely no way that it can be done by the end of the year. I have a call into the state to see if we can have it under contract by then and still have it count, or if the work has to be done. If the work has to be done, that's clearly off the table. If we can contract it, and there's even some question as to whether they can get that moving forward in time, we may be able to apply for that. So the way they have this whole thing set up, FEMA money, they're assuming this is FEMA reimbursable. I spoke to our FEMA rep, and they said, no, it's not. So although I may want to ask for $10,000, when I put it in the form for the state, it automatically reduces it to $2,500 that we're asking for. So they are aware of it, and they said that we'll have a reconciliation in December where all of this will be straightened out. And I guess we have to trust that the system will work, because I don't know any other way to get around it at this point. And I feel badly about the school situation, but it is what it is. If we can't get the work done by the time they say we have to have it in, we're not going to be able to pay for it. It's a substantially expensive project. And I don't know if Gillian would know if that means if we don't get it done, the kids can't use the cafeteria. Can they still be fed in the classrooms if they come back?
Sorry, probably, though the concern then becomes, is there enough room to space them at least 6 feet apart while they have their masks off and so they can eat?
Yeah.
And it may even be that they're suggesting a larger space than that while they're eating. I fortunately don't have to make those decisions. I know the schools are being raked over the coals with all of this in terms of staff,
Absolutely.
requirements, and being told to have the kids back in school.
Would the concept be that though, that if the air handler system was quite expensive, that it would it qualify for the reimbursement in total, if we were to do it, if it could be done within the time period?
I think that it will through the state. We just have to work through this, showing to the state that MEMA won't pay for it. And then at that point, I think that we would be able to tap into the COVID CARES state money. But it's just that the request that I have to make tomorrow is far reduced. Yeah, and I don't know how this works in terms of, and in addition, because the school, this money only comes to the towns, so the town and the Union 28 will have to sign an agreement, because they will be the sub-grantee to this. So, when we do get the money, that's another step as to how we somehow reimburse Union 28.
How are other towns doing that with regional schools that qualify for COVID money? Do the towns apply or the school?
Athol is doing this through this sub-grantee, that there's no other option. The school had state money, but they've spent it because they obviously have had far more expenses related to this, and there's no more coming to the schools, so the town can pick up the slack.
I see.
But it has to be through these agreements.
Boy.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be enough money to do much with it. I mean, enough time, excuse me, enough money, time or money, enough time to do much of anything with it.
So, I mean, if it's possible that if we have a contract signed by the end of the year, that they will allow us to move forward, that would be great. But I'm not holding out a lot of hope for that.
The contractors all over are doing this. because so many,
And that's the other problem. We can't get a contractor because they're so busy.
right,
Every school is doing it,
right. School and other
and other things, right? Yeah, town
other
offices. Yeah.
offices and everything.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's even if, I can imagine there's the issue of installation, but then there's the issue of getting the actual handlers. If they're replacing handlers, the manufacturing process and the demand for those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Is hard.
Yep.
I don't
They
have
might be back ordered.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, I will submit for what they're going to allow us to submit for, and we'll just have to see how it plays out come December.
Right. Well, thanks for doing that, Nancy.
Yep.
Mm.
I appreciate it.
Yep. So we can go back to signboards.
Okay, so you probably don't need me anymore, yes?
Nope.
Probably not, Doug. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks.
Thanks, Doug.
Me and my crazy ideas, right? Okay,
Keep them coming. We need them.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we talked about, we used to have like a signboard that sat out on the common when we had events, and nobody seems to know where that's gone. So I went online, and they do have the ones you put the little letters on. They look like sort of sandwich boards that stand up there. They run between $160 and $200. Is that anything you want me to pursue, or?
I think the board that we had before was a dry mark board.
Yep,
You could just write on.
yep.
I think maybe that would be cheaper than the one with all the little letters and easier to use, maybe.
Okay, let me look for those.
Yeah, if you could look for one of those would be good. We have been putting out the voting sign at the town office. We have a little sign for that, voting today. That's been going up.
Yep.
But I know.
Going strong right now.
What's that?
I said the voting was going strong tonight.
Oh, was it? Okay, good. Yeah, it's been steady all along ever since the first day. A lot of people interested.
I know I was looking for those, like the plastic sandwich boards that are larger for work, and was surprised how expensive they were. I thought they were expensive for a piece of
Yeah,
plastic.
some of them are $400 or $500. They're really expensive.
100 is expensive for me at work, so I'm like, I'm gonna have to make something.
Okay. So I spoke with the assessors earlier. They're talking about their vacancy tonight, and they asked if we could put them on the next agenda to talk about appointing to somebody to that opening. So we can move on from there.
You mean they have somebody in mind?
Somebody has expressed an interest,
Uh-huh.
and they think they were speaking to that person tonight about it, so.
Okay.
So the next thing, Laura, you had asked about talking about green communities. We have some remaining funds and what we might do with them.
Yes. We've had this designation grant when we first became a green community for I don't know how many years. And this is the last year that they're going to let us hold on to it. It's only $5,600 that's left. We just put in the library heat pumps, and that took most of it. But we need to either spend it by the middle of next year or lose it, or we can, if we spend it by January 30th, then we're eligible to apply for the next competitive grant round. So that's our ideal goal, the Energy Committee, is to spend it by January. So one of my thoughts was, could we possibly use it for the town hall? The insulation that we're sort of waiting on doing underneath the town hall. And I did check in with Jim on that because I had checked in with Nancy and was still just trying to remember all the details about it. And one of the problems there is that we wanted to do some mold remediation before we put in the insulation. And I checked with Jim and he thinks that that's a good idea, which probably means that there's no way we could spend that money before January. And I don't know if we want to talk more about that or if we should put that further out. But so he also said, and we have been talking about putting a heat pump into the senior center. So that seems to be like maybe the best option. And we might pursue that. But then I had just found this out this week. So I originally put that on with the idea that we would talk about how we could use it at the town hall. But I'm thinking now that's just not going to work out. But if anyone has any other ideas, and then, so once we do spend it, if we can spend it by January, then we can apply for another grant. And the Energy Committee has been talking about things we would apply for. And the senior center was going to be one of those things. So now we'll have to find other ideas. The schools are ideal, but we can't, Mahar is not eligible yet for that because it's a regional school. Anyway, I could talk to you a lot about green communities, but I think that was the main thing I wanted to put out there. And then if we just wanted to, I don't know if now's the time to think about the town hall project. And Nancy, I probably should have forwarded you this because when Nancy and I talked, we were wondering if the original quote, so what we're looking to do, I believe, is put spray foam in the crawl space underneath the town hall. And the original quote was for 900 square feet. Is that what you said, Nancy?
Which we thought was too little, and also the original quote is going on 3 years old. I would imagine we would have to rebid that.
So I checked in with Jim on that, and he thought that the space that doesn't include the stage of the kitchen might be in that ballpark, maybe a little bit more. Maybe, I can't remember now if he said 1,200, but then he said that including the stage and the kitchen might be a good idea. So it does seem like we probably want to go back out and get an updated quote, figure out how much we want to do and get an updated quote. And then he had an idea of how to do mold remediation. But we had also talked about concrobium, and I think that might be another conversation to have. But I know none of this is in our budget, so I was hoping we could use the Green Communities money, but I don't think that's going to happen. So we can put that off if you want. But if anybody has other ideas of ways to use this $5,600, please let me know.
Well, would the 5,600 pay for the heat pumps in the senior center?
Yeah, I think that might work. It's hard to know depending on if we wanted just one for the first floor or if we wanted one for the basement as well. If it would cover the whole thing or not, and because we just don't know exactly how much it would cost. But we can easily go out and get quotes for that and figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I would support that. It sounds like a good way to spend the money, and then work up a plan for the town hall and put that off till next year. Maybe we'll get a grant for that.
Yeah, I did ask Jim about if he thought we could apply for that. And he, they do have some pretty strict sort of energy payback criteria for green communities grants. And it seems like almost anything we do in our buildings might not qualify just because there's such low usage, and particularly the town hall. So he wasn't confident that we could get the grant with that project, but maybe I'll double check and ask our our Green Communities Coordinator to see what he thinks.
Yeah, good.
But yeah, that's something to think about.
Yeah, doing the senior center seems like that makes the most sense.
Okay.
Just to go ahead.
Thanks, Lori.
Mm-hmm. Al?
Al, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to cut in on just hearing about the senior center. Are they doing humidity control in the basement there? And now with dehumidifier anymore?
I think so.
Because that would have a significant savings. If you're doing dehumidifying, a mini split would really be far more efficient than most dehumidifiers. And I can tell you that from direct experience, because we have a multi-head system in the house and we put a head into the basement specifically for humidity control. And it's a huge savings and it's quite effective. So I just want to make that point to you.
Okay, good.
I think Jim said something like that too. So yeah, that will be our aim.
I'm just cutting in when I have something to contribute. That's all.
Thanks, Al.
Good.
Okay, I think that covers green communities.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody has anything under the old business list to discuss. I don't have anything new on any of these items.
Either do I.
Do we know if Alistair did the repair?
I checked with him before the last meeting and he said he had not, and he'd try to get it done before this meeting. And then I emailed him this morning and I haven't heard back. So I have a feeling not. I know he's running around doing a million things, so.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the old business. Oh, you don't have it.
Animal control, I saw Megan and Maggie talking after the police coffee chat session, whatever you called it. So I'm hoping that's moving along in the right direction.
I think it is. Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember what they all are. Oh. I think I got it.
Okay, the only new item I have is the meeting house, and I did send out those documents to you folks just a few hours ago, which are the marked up versions of the land agreement and the purchase sale agreement for the meeting house, which Chris Queen sent me, and the meeting house people had come up with a series of questions, mainly about the land use agreement. And they're not simple questions, some of them. They require maybe changing the agreement, modifying it slightly. I don't think any of them are major impediments to signing this thing. And I did speak with Chris, and they are anxious to sign and get this completed. So I think probably why doesn't everybody just review those documents for the next meeting? Nancy, can you put Chris Queen on our agenda for the next meeting, please?
Yes.
And I think that 2 weeks from tonight is Veterans Day. So I think we need to push that meeting ahead one day. Is that what we normally do, Nancy?
Either ahead or behind, either Tuesday or Thursday, whichever works better for people.
What do you folks think? Tuesday might be better just in terms of the processing the warrant in time for the checks to go out.
Broadband committee is that night at 6:30.
Oh, okay.
Oh, did we push? Oh, yeah, because we pushed it back because of the election.
Right.
And actually, well, so how about Thursday?
That should work for me.
That should work for me.
And that's okay with you, Nancy?
Yep, fine with me.
Okay, so that's the 12th, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, can you let Chris know when you come up with a time for that, please, Nancy?
Yes, I will.
Thanks.
Okay, and I had one more quick thing before we go on to the MLP. The flag at the town office building got wrapped around the pole and ripped, so we got a new one. And I'm gonna see if our new custodian can help to put the new one up. We need, some kind of tool to get the flagpole down. And at the same time, I wanted to know if you are interested. We do have a similar size Town of Wendell flag that we had made. Do you want me to add that to the pole under the American flag, or no?
Yeah.
I know that this will create controversy if I do this, but, we have it. It's been sitting in a drawer.
I think it sounds great to put it up.
Yeah, I like it.
I like
Some
it too.
You think some people won't like it?
Yes.
There's always some people that don't like something. But I think that's a great idea. Nancy, I was actually going to tackle that flag problem the other day. I would try to take it down, but I couldn't see how you do take the pole down.
Yeah, I can show you, but it needs a tool that I don't have, a little wrench.
Oh, okay.
It's got like collars on it that you have to unloosen, and then it slides down, and then you unloosen the next part and it slides down.
Okay.
It like telescopes down to the level where you can change it.
Right, I sort of saw that, but so you have a way of getting the tool?
I'll have to go out and see what it is. I'm sure it's some wrench or another. My husband would be appalled that I don't know what it is, but I don't.
Oh, is it an Allen wrench, a hex wrench?
No. It's I don't know what size, whether it's
Okay.
7/8 or 23 millimeters or whatever it is.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks for doing that. I think that flag is probably bothering some people.
Yes.
I had a couple of little
Okay.
things before we go on to MLP, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to remember that we did mention the money managers meeting at the assessors last night, and I think we've probably missed, or we've off schedule because of COVID.
Yep.
And so I don't know if that's something we should think about scheduling. Or
Sure. We usually do it the hour before the select board meeting starts on a select board meeting night. I feel like the second one in November is already the night before Thanksgiving, so maybe that's not the best night, but maybe the first meeting in December.
Okay, that sounds good.
That sounds good.
Okay.
That would be December 9th.
All right. And another quick thing, the website or the committee folks had a conversation that I was attached to about making the select board meeting videos or recordings more accessible. Even though I haven't been giving them to I haven't been giving them the recordings for a while. I mean, we just sort of stopped doing that. But they decided to make a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I guess I figured it might be worth checking with everybody to see what they think about that. And then I'm also sort of just wondering if there are any rules around notifying people if they're getting put. I mean, I try to tell everybody about that we're recording them, but I'm not telling them that we're posting them on YouTube. So I don't know how, if anyone has ideas on how we might want to handle that. I mean, if we think it's a good idea, any thoughts?
I'm wondering if there's any legality to it, because, I mean, you can attend a meeting in person and see the people who are there, but when something is recorded and then put up on something like YouTube, it can go around the world, which is very different. And I mean, if somebody requested the recording to view, that seems okay with me. But I do kind of have I actually noticed there are already meetings that are posted on the website.
Yeah, yeah. They
Recording,
took, because we had made them all available for a little while. And
right?
Bobby had put them at the library, on the library server, which I don't know how accessible that is. But this was, yeah, an idea they had, and they sort of just went with it, and I figured I'd check with you guys before I made any request of them, whether to take it down or.
Yeah, well, I'm no big fan of YouTube personally, but on the other hand, this is an open public meeting. And like any public situation, I think people have to come to it with the expectation that they could be filmed and if that film could be made public. It's no different from making a film on Times Square. You certainly don't go out and get permission from everybody walking along Broadway.
Mhm.
It's a public space and it's a public meeting, so I wouldn't hesitate to put it up there. I
Uh-huh.
think it is good etiquette to let everybody know at the meeting that it's being recorded. That would be a good thing to do, to let people know, especially visitors to our meeting.
I wonder if we should also put it on the agenda. Just like so that we're covered.
It wouldn't hurt to put it on the agenda with all the other technical information that's now going on the bottom.
Right, that this meeting will be recorded.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I try to remember to say it at the beginning. People might join and leave, so I don't know, maybe and then people are on the phone. I'm just trying to think if we need to repeat it or during the meeting, but.
There must be some guidance somewhere, because so many people are dealing with this. I wonder if it's something that we should just sort of research a little bit and figure out.
Al, you had a thought?
Yeah, actually, I have an old friend and who's down in Oak Bluffs on Martha's Vineyard, and he's head of the planning board down there. And I've been attending their YouTube or observing their YouTube meetings after the Zoom meetings. And they do that quite regularly. I can check in with him if he has anything to add to that as far as legalities or how they're handling that. But he's been sending me notice on many of their meetings regularly on especially on a couple of the issues that he wanted some input on. So I'd be glad to check in with him and see what he has to say about that if you like.
Sure.
That'd be great.
I
Yeah.
just, the Digital Media Law Project has very updated October 13th, 2020, information on open meeting laws in Massachusetts. I could email that to.
Sure.
Okay, that'd be good. Okay, we're ready for MLP business?
Sure.
Lori, we got, at least I received your draft on the job description and information. That all looked good to me. I think you folks know more about it than I do. But it looked good to me.
Good. Well, that's easy.
Yeah, I'm very easy on that one. Gillian, do you have any thoughts about it?
No, I worked on it with them and I think I felt good about it.
Good.
Not that I'm the most knowledgeable about it, but it sounded good.
So I guess then the next question is, do we want to wait for the next broadband meeting to have everybody give thoughts on it? Or do we feel like we are in a position to move to the next step and possibly?
Which would be sort of advertising the positions.
Yeah.
I think we can move to that, personally. I'm not on the broadband committee anymore, so I don't have any possessive feelings about that, but maybe someone else does it. When we get the broadband to look at it first, but it's sort of something that would be good to do sooner rather than later, I think, get it out there, right? Oh, since our house got connected today.
Wow.
Woo!
right. You were supposed to be the last one.
Well, as it turns out, I don't think I'm the last one because there
No,
are
I
some
think
people with-
there's some
some people
underground.
with- some underground people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not
Right.
meeting from home. You still live.
Anyway, we are getting near the end, so I think getting the MLP thing going is good.
Yeah, Lou hasn't done hers either yet, I think. She said Halloween.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. She wasn't as quick on the draw.
Yeah.
Town offices aren't done either.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so I guess then this doesn't have to be, this is just something where we'll put it on the listserv and
And
maybe
the
next board.
next newsletter.
in the next newsletter, which is in December. So, but that's right, that's in December.
Yeah.
We want to wait that long? I mean, it seems like if we put something out, we already know who's going to be interested for
Right.
the most part, we think. The whole thing could be a very quick turnaround, depending on
Okay.
how we make it.
Okay. Good.
But I don't feel a rush. I'm just, so I just want to think that through. If we're going to put it out there, I guess I would say we don't have to put something out now and then wait for the newsletter. We'd either wait and do it all closer to that time, or or just see what happens when we do it now without the newsletter.
Personally, I would say go ahead and do it now. And if it's not resolved by the time the newsletter goes out, then we can add something on that.
Okay.
Maybe it will be.
Are we going to wait to see if we need to go through some kind of a vetting process?
I thought we were going to put this out and ask for statements of intent from people.
Okay.
And that would be the basis of our vetting. And so we would look at those statements and make a decision based on that.
Okay.
Yes. And I would like to just include people saying if they are interested in being the manager.
Yeah.
Rather, or just so that we can have that information.
And what about, I think in your, in what you wrote, it actually says that all the positions are volunteer at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Something to that effect, but are we thinking about a salary for the manager? And if so, maybe that should be included in the information.
Well, currently, from the discussion at the broadband meeting, there was agreement that we would not have that from the beginning. We'd want
Okay.
it to sort of start out all volunteer and wait and see, first of all, how the duties are, get split up, and then what the budget looks like once we've got all our income, we know what the income and expenses are going to be like.
Yeah.
So I think everybody agreed that maybe we'd keep it volunteer at the start, and maybe we'd change that in the future.
Right. That sounds good.
Okay. So I will plan to put something on the listserv, maybe the job description. Maybe I don't know if it's good to include it in an email, in the body of an email. Maybe I'll just link to it on the website.
Okay.
Unless you guys think that it would be okay. Sometimes the formatting gets all messed up on the listserv too.
I think I would do a link.
Yeah. And I'll, put the same on just the website itself. And
Yeah, good.
I can post it on Nextdoor too. I don't know how many people see that, but
Doesn't hurt.
right.
all right, I'm gonna try to do that.
Thank you, Lori. That's great. Moving ahead. Is that the extent of the MLP agenda?
That's it.
All we have written down. All right, any further items from anyone?
Nope.
Well, very good. Think we can adjourn the meeting at 8:30? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Nancy.
See you all
Thank-
tomorrow.
Thanks. See you
Yes.
tomorrow.
Bye.
All right.